Chapter 5 Dying of Peg-Leg Logan. I was in the DZ ranch just after I'd crossed the line into New Mexico when I rode upon a man with a peg leg. He was hopping along as best he could. The man was evidently in awful pain. I moved in closer and spoke. "Hello, stranger," I said as I broke my horse to a stop. "Seems you happened to hard luck." He looked at me but did not say a word, only stared. I got off my horse and went to him. His tongue was swollen and his eyes had sunk back into his head. I had a canteen of water in my pack on my lead horse. I got a cup and gave him some water. He reached out for the canteen. I told him to wait a little while, then he could have more. I waited, then offered it to him. I helped him on my horse and rode my pack. I saw that his hair under his hat had dried blood and dirt on it. He had gotten a bad fall in some way. We were in the DZ ranch for most of the cattle had the brand. A man named Jim Curtis bought the DZ cattle and spread from Jim Newman about 1896. Phelps White, Fatty, was foreman of one of the LFD ranches. We traveled slowly and he would reel in the saddle. Finally we came in sight of a windmill and some cottonwood trees. I knew there must be a cow camp near, so we headed straight to it. We came to a large alkali lake, fenced in so stock could not get to it. We had to go around, which took us 2 miles out of our way. There we saw an adobe house built in a grove of some trees. No one was home. I spread my bed under a tree after the stranger had drunk some more water. I would not let him have it too fast, and I made him comfortable and hobbled out my 2 horses and set about to fix him something to eat. I didn't have anything suitable for a sick man. I didn't even have coffee since I never drank it. I found some crackers and opened a can of tomatoes. He ate a few bites and then set the cup down. I got a pan of cool water from the windmill and washed his face, head, and hands. He had a high fever. I found that he had 3 ribs broken. He also had many bad bruises. I unbuckled his wooden leg. His leg was off at the knee. I pulled off his boots. I hated to leave him, and he was unable to go any further. I hid his wooden leg so he would wander off while I was gone. I put the water near him and saddled up. I headed again for the Portales. I didn't know just how far it was, maybe 25 miles or more. There were no fences, so I headed due west. I could keep my course by watching the stars. Along about 2 in the morning, I heard a dog bark. A welcome sound. I knew I was probably near a house. Soon I could see something in front of me, then several houses popped into view. I called out several times before I was heard, and a woman answered. "What do you want?" she yelled from the closed door. "I need a doctor, a man and his team, and a hack for a sick man I found earlier on the trail." "Who is he?" "Don't know. He couldn't talk. I judge he's been wandering around for days." "My man is away, and so is every other man, except the saloon keeper. Got an old hack and 2 burros, and that's the only team in this town right now. Men folks have gone to Hereford after freight. They'll be gone for at least a week." She opened the door then. "It is 6 miles farther west of the nearest ranch, and their men are probably gone too." "Could I borrow your hack and burros to get a man to a doctor?" I asked. "Yes, but the burros are hobbled out. Not likely you can find them until daylight. Try to get some rest for a little while." I rode a short distance, unsaddled my horse, and hobbled him and lay down. A rooster crowing soon woke me up at the break of day. I felt worn, but I jumped up and went in search of the donkeys. The woman gave me some fever medicine for the man. She kept my horse until I returned. That was the slowest team I'd ever driven since I used to plow oxen when I was a sprig. The ground was rough and there wasn't any road to follow. When I got back to my patient, he was better. He could talk, and he still had the fever. I loaded my bud into the hack for him, got a canteen of water, fed him, gave him the fever powder, and bathed his side in liniment. We traveled slow because of his bruises. He groaned a good deal, but I knew he was really in bad pain. He told me that he was working for the LFD at 4 Lakes. He had started to the DZ wagon when his horse threw him, and he had either pawed him or kicked him. He did not know how long he had wandered around when I found him. He said it was Monday morning when he was thrown. It was Wednesday when I found him. His horse and saddle, pack horse, and 5 loose horses were missing. I told him I would try to get them as soon as I could leave him. He said, "Oh, you debt I can never pay if I live." We rode on in silence for a spell, then he added, "If I don't live, I want you to do me one more favor." When he said no more until we reached Portales, we did not get there until about 10 that night. The only man there was a saloon keeper. He opened his doors to us and did all he could for the poor man. He finally told us that he went by the name of Bill Longfellow. He had been in that country 4 years. He was much worse by the next morning. I tried to get him to let me take him to Roswell to a doctor, but he wouldn't even let me go for one. He said he wouldn't do any good. "My time is here, boy," he whispered to me. "I can't last long, and I don't really care. But will you write 2 letters for me? One is to a man in Kansas, the other to a sheriff of Logan County, Kansas." I got a pencil and paper, and he told me the following. "Dear Sheriff, I'm the one who shot and killed Della McGeorge on the night of May 1st, 1884. I shot her with a .38 caliber pistol when I saw her walking home from church with you Collins. I hid by the side of the road. The shot was meant for you. I'm dying and want to clear my conscience. I hated you because he wandered from me. I hope he will forgive me when he is a free man." I braced his shoulder while he signed the paper. On it he signed the name as John Logan. Then he had me write to Earl McGeorge, the girl's brother, in Eureka, Kansas. He told the man he was sorry for what he had done, as he killed the only woman he had ever loved. He explained to the man how it had happened and asked if he could get Hugh Collins out of the pen where he had been sent up for 99 years. I read the letter back to him. He signed it and lay back while the saloon keeper and I signed our names to both letters. Logan asked me to find that his horses and to notify Phelps White. He didn't say much after that. I think the hot sun and the jolting from the hack had caused blood poisoning to set up on his side. If I had kept him at the DZ camp and could have gotten to a doctor, he might have lived. He died at 12 the following day. The saloon keeper and I buried him, and we started out to find horses in his gear. In time I was to learn of the man called Hugh Collins, as our paths were destined to cross in later years. The horses had drifted to Ranger Lake and had taken up there. The pack horse had still part of Logan's pack, but it was turned underneath his body. The horse had thrown him and lost its bridle, and the cinch had buried itself in the horse's flesh. I found the DZ wagon in my search, and Mr. Curtis promised to take care of the LFD cattle until they could send another man. I went on to Portales and continued my journey northwest, going by the noted Horn Ranch. The Horn Ranch was noted for its bad men who worked there. Old Man Horn, Camp 40 stories told, was the meanest man in New Mexico. I headed there from Fort Sumner to hang out with Billy the Kid and other men of his class. I wasn't looking for work, and I took my time. I wanted to buy land of my own. I thought that Pearlie, in my hazy daydreams, planned to make her my wife. I didn't settle, and she never became a wife. But as I rode along, I thought of the bad horses I rode at the Simpson place. 6 of them. I bulldogged and 3-year-old steer by jumping from the horseback to the neck of the steer, catching him with both horns in my hands, reaching down and catching his lower lip with my teeth, and reaching back with my spurs and catching him on the forelegs, pulling his head back to one side, and thereby throwing him on his back and holding him until he lay on top of me. But this was something few people had ever heard of, and nobody but a fearless kid would try it. I rode into Fort Sumner one morning. It was a little Mexican town with low adobe buildings, and Mexicans of both sexes and of all ages were loitering in the shade of the buildings, enjoying the hot sun. They looked me over carefully as I rode through. I circled through the town, trying to find a post office. I had written to Pearlie and to my parents. When my horses grazed and rested at noon, I saw a lone white man standing in the door of a long adobe building. I asked him to tell me where the post office was. I started next for the hardware and the grocery store. I needed to increase my supply of ammunition and groceries for a long trip, or stay in the wilderness, for I'd grown tired of the plains and sandhills, and decided to cross the Pecos River and go into the White Mountains. I wanted to get far away from people and towns. When I got back to my horses, I found several men looking them over. They had examined the teeth and the brand, and they asked questions which I answered as politely as I could. It nettled me through. I went on packing my groceries, and then I singled out an honest-looking man in the crowd and told him that I was in part of the country looking for a place to locate a small cattle ranch. I asked him where I could get wood and water and grass all in one spot, and what part might a fellow do well for himself in. He looked me over and said, "If I were looking for a place like that, I would go from here to the old Agua de Caballo, and then from there towards Clayton. If you have any money and grit to back it, you might do okay. Around the Caprock hasn't been claimed by any special outfit yet. It was settled by Mexicans who have more sheep than anything else." He told me it used to be claimed by the Crazy Horse outfit, but that they had all gone out of business. He added that was about as good as I would be able to find anywhere around. He told me that it would be 40 or 50 miles after I left the river before I would come to the timber breaks of the Canadian River on my way to Clayton. I thanked him and mounted my horse and rode north, not telling him where I really intended to go. I aimed to go to Santa Rosa and Las Vegas and had asked about both places. So I jogged along slowly toward the north up the river most of all evenings, and near night bore to the right into the hills and valleys. I noticed that I had been followed by a horseman from Sumner. I had also slowed down in order to let him catch up with me, but he had borne around to the right and gotten the lead. But never did he leave me more than a mile behind. I had grown suspicious that I was being watched by someone for reasons unknown to me. I thought it might be either a lawman or an outlaw. I had money in my pockets and 2 fine horses. I knew I had brought too much money with me. I selected a good camp in a little valley that evening. The grass was plush and green, and I got some supper, then lay down to rest. I dozed, but woke up immediately when old Dunn snorted. I strained my ears and eyes and had my gun out. I did not know whether someone disturbed my horses walking like they had been driven. I jumped up and ran towards him, my spurs jingling. I could not see my animals in the dark, and I couldn't hear them after I began running. I stopped and lay down and began straining my ears. My horses had vanished into the night. I got up and ran again in the direction I had heard them go. I got tired, so I stopped to rest and take notice of where I was. I did not have much idea of how far I was from camp. I had run until I was panting and wet with sweat. I lay down and pondered over my present situation. I cursed myself for being such a fool to turn both horses loose. I knew they had been driven off by someone, one who had been following me. I should have traveled a piece further after dark instead of staying where I'd eaten supper. I should have repacked and gone on a mile or two. I could have given the thief the dodge that way. I had to wait until daylight. I found camp, and though it wasn't pleasant being left afoot on the prairie, or and alone, not knowing how far I was from a ranch or a farm, I finally went to sleep. If my horses were crowded, they could travel 8 miles a day for several days, and I hadn't seen many horses around that country that could do that. Next morning, I ate a bite and began looking for tracks. Soon I found the hobbles that had been cut off. I got the course I had taken and decided from the tracks that they were being led. I climbed to the top of a high hill and could see a house off in the north about 6 miles, so I set off for it. When I got to it, I found a woman and her 4 children, ranging in ages from 4 to 17. I found that Mr. Andy Cogger lived there. He had not been in the country for long and only had 4 head of horses. He was using both saddle horses. One of his work horses was a big, clumsy old fellow, and the other a trim, powerfully built steed which had been ridden several times when he was 4 years old, and had thrown a good rider and killed him. He had been turned loose as an outlaw, and Mr. Coger had bought him for a work horse. He told me I was welcome to either of the work horses. I picked the outlaw horse and had to walk and lead him to ride him bareback. I had nothing but my carabine, as I had left camp with it. Mr. Coger went to camp with me to carry the carbine for me, and brought all my camp outfit to keep at his house. I used my skill and strength to keep the old boy from pitching. I left my spurs in my saddle, and if he tried, he might have thrown me without the spurs to hold on with. I needed special strength and a good horse to overtake the thieves. Mr. Coger and I found camp as I'd left it. I rolled my bed and provisions up and put them on the horse, and saddled old Dynamite, and took the trail where I'd found the hobbles. I followed it until dark, hobbled and staked old Dynamite, and lay down on my slicker. I slept that night with coyotes yelping all around me. I could hear them snapping their teeth. The owls hooted all night to make it more forlorn. I was used to noise, but it all sounded particularly loud and lonesome on this occasion.